The ultimate goal of a value proposition to the entrepreneur is to enable frictionless customer acquisition. The more friction, the less likely you are able to acquire new customers. The jobs to be done process helps provide the foundation of your value proposition by validating the value gap, the market opportunity size, target group's willingness to pay, and so on. The testing process is about developing an in-depth understanding about the purchase drivers of the target groups. What are their objections, or what level of acceptance exists for the new value proposition? If the required acceptance levels aren't there, customers in the target group will not take the desired action. They need to trust and believe that the value proposition will reliably create the promised value. If your target customer group has had a bad experience with your type of technology or a similar value proposition, they will likely need a lot more convincing before taking any action. A value proposition testing process, therefore, helps to identify these problems and remove as much sales friction as possible before you actually commit to an expensive and time-consuming build.
Hello there.
Hi, Vincent.
What is the purpose of value proposition testing, and what are the benefits of this for an entrepreneur?
Okay, so testing a value proposition is all about risk management. The real goal here is that you're trying to figure out, can you sell your value proposition before you actually build the product? This way you can test what success looks like, and you can know more about what the market actually wants without getting sucked into building a product that nobody actually does want. So let the market take the risk for you. This is not a quick win. It is a lot quicker and a lot cheaper to develop and test marketing materials than a product. But actually, preparing marketing materials for a value proposition test is certainly not an easy task. I often see technical founders, and the problem is that their comfort zone is actually building something concrete and tangible. They want to build their product. But then they've got to learn to resist this temptation as much as possible. Start focusing on selling and marketing to engage in this risk management process. Marketing might not be their thing, so they've got to think about, maybe they need to get a highly capable marketing co-founder that can help design these marketing materials and start to conduct these tests.
So what is the value proposition testing process?
Okay, so it's more than one process, and each value proposition needs to be considered on its own merits. Broadly, we've got qualitative tests and quantitative tests. And there are many different methods and processes for carrying out these tests. I could describe a few, but it's probably better that we just focus on understanding what the objectives of those different testing processes are. So the purpose of a qualitative test is to get to the why a specific customer is going to take action or takes no action. Understanding the subtleties of their objections and why they might accept something or reject something within the value proposition. Whereas a quantitative test should seek to build on these insights that you've established in your qualitative testing. So in your quantitative test, you might understand or get some insights about channels that customers say they're using. The quantitative test would then validate that across a bigger sample. So I've devised 7 key questions that a qualitative test should seek to answer. So that should give some broad insight. So broadly, they're trying to figure out the why of what your customer's doing. So first question would be, what is the frequency, context and relevancy of the customer's job to be done to the value proposition? So again, you're going back to those business decisions around the job and validating that this is something, this is a job within the value proposition that you actually want to focus on. There are other questions, for example, question 4 would be, why did the customer take or not take the desired action? So you're trying to figure out what's stopping them taking action. And if you can't figure out why a customer doesn't take the action that you want, then you're not going to learn anything. And doing a quantitative test isn't going to give you the why. It's only through doing a qualitative, exploratory investigation of that you're going to understand that the reason they didn't take action was because they don't like, if you've got an AI solution and they've had a bad experience with artificial intelligence, then that might be the thing that's stopping them. So then you've got to figure out a way around that problem. So there are a whole number of these different questions that you need to think about asking.
You mentioned an entrepreneur should try to sell before you build a product. What examples do you have of these?
Yes, absolutely. The idea of selling your product before you build it is trying to get this ultimate validation that your proposition will drive the action that you want. For example, Buffer, the Twitter post scheduling tool, founder Joel Gascoigne explains that after failing in his first startup, that with Buffer he was going to do it differently, and he was going to actually test his product. People wanted his product before he actually built it. He did what we call a smoke test, testing the illusion of the product before it's actually built. So what he did is he built out a 3-page landing website. The first 2 pages were designed to test how motivated target customers were, and he had a pricing option, and he not just determined would they pay for it, what would they pay for it. And finally, when he completed the smoke test, he said, "Hello, you caught us before we're ready." So he's being open with the fact that it isn't built, but then he gives them an option to then, if they're interested, to remind me of when it is built. So he's getting people to sign up to his proposition and doing that in a way that is keeping the audience on board.
Thanks.
Thank you.